Hooty hoo! Hey guys, welcome to episode 71. Alright, guys, so we're here with another great guest. So, our next guest is someone, if you follow anything I do on Instagram, I was on her Instagram live. It was really fun, and she actually made a shirt with, I guess, one of my quotes, which was kind of cool, and I have worn it a couple times already. I was just when I first started Instagram, I was just kind of perusing through people I should add and so on, and she was one I kind of came across. I was like, she's just this really, pretty woman, externally and internally, and I'm just like, okay, I need to see what she's about, and she actually got back to me pretty quickly, and even though she's a very busy person, and so I was very happy to get to know her and become friends with her. So why don't you say hello and say your name and obviously, like a little about yourself.
Sure. Hello everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you here today, to share in this experience of who I am, and so you can get to know a little bit about me as a creator and a person. So, I'm Kendra Hendricks. I am a purpose-driven creator, and I recently started an apparel empowerment advocacy line for those with disabilities. I am an advocate for those with disabilities. I've been in the mental health field for over 10 years, and I'm still in the mental health field serving those with disabilities, um, currently at two different institutions that is worldwide known, Kennedy Krieger and Shepherd Pratt, for those who are familiar. And for my business, it displays purposeful messages and graphics that dismantle stigmas, break down barriers, promote change, and help to elevate those with disabilities. In addition, it brings awareness to unique abilities and talents of those with disabilities. I'm really trying to emphasize what people with disabilities are able to do, what they're capable of doing while embracing the disability, because, with employment especially, we don't want to ignore the disability because we got to be inclusive. We need to start making platforms accessible for everyone with a disability to access. So that's what I'm advocating for, and I'm starting to do so much, but we can discuss it later in the show of how I'm trying to diversify my services and what I offer, so I can not just talk about the change I want to see, but I can also be the change I want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes when I was interviewing somebody the other night, and actually probably be the episode right before yours. It was a cop, and he deals with the homeless, I talk about a lot of things, and someone asked me, it's like, well, what's his disability? And I was like, well, he doesn't have one. He doesn't need to have one to do great things. It's just,
Right.
I guess the typical thing is that a lot of people I have on have disabilities, which it's fine. But in your case, you don't have a disability, right?
Correct.
Right. I mean, you wear glasses, but that's not a disability. But that's what kind of makes her a lot more interesting. Well, I mean, a lot more, but it makes her more interesting in a way because she doesn't have any attachments to it, at least personally, and she's still out here fighting for us. So, what made you kind of go on this journey? Like, why people with disabilities? Because another thing is you are a black woman, and
Mhm.
there's other causes there that would be more personal to you.
Mhm.
But why this one?
That's a great question. That's so convoluted with so much experiences in my life that I can talk about. So I'm only going to choose a few. It started in childhood when I was about 5 or 6 in kindergarten and into first grade. I had a friend named Maya. Maya had a physical deformity on her nose, which caused one of her nostrils to be collapsed, and she had to go through multiple surgeries so she can breathe correctly and to modify the appearance of her nose. So she was bullied a lot in class, and I didn't like it. At a young age, I knew something was wrong with that. And I didn't know how to stand up for her, but I knew I needed to stand with her. So I made sure I played with her. I made sure that she felt like she had a friend and a sense of belonging. When people would tease her and she would cry, I would hug her. Because at 5 or 6, I didn't know what to say, but I knew to be compassionate. It's just like instilled. It's an innate nature within me. So that was my first experience, and I didn't see it as a difference that needed to be made fun of, or I needed to dismiss her for, or it was something that isolated her from me and others. But I embraced her. So that was my first experience. My second one was I had a friend in the neighborhood around 11 or 12 years old who was deaf, And again, I didn't recognize her as having disability. I just thought she had a unique way of communicating. So I loved it because how we communicated was through writing. She couldn't speak, and I couldn't do sign language, but we wrote together. And I love writing. I love writing poetry, so it was relatable to me. And yeah, that was a great time with her. And then as I got older, as an adult, I found myself loving to counsel other people and just wanted to make a difference in people who otherwise were counted out and felt as if they were counted out. So when I got into the mental health field, I started to meet a lot of people with various disabilities, and I found it to be interesting because some of these people were more acceptable of me than people who were not disabled because I too was also bullied because I was quiet and reserved, and I didn't really look like the other kids or had what they had. So, I found it's crazy. I felt more of a sense of belonging there with those with disabilities than I did with those with abilities sometimes. Um, for my last point, what ignited me to start my Empowerment Referral 531 advocacy line, last year during the pandemic, I had an experience with a student who I was connecting to an internship who has autism. He does not verbally speak, but he uses a device and sign language to communicate. And he has been in my work-based learning program. I'm a transition coordinator, so I facilitate the work-based learning experience where I help them develop job-related skills and generalize their skill sets to be able to be eligible for supported employment after high school. So this individual graduated this past week, but prior to his graduation, I wanted him to really be in the internship that we offered. But I found a lot of mindset deficiencies and distorted perceptions and limited beliefs about him from the administration and staff when we had our meeting. And it was baffling because I'm like, how do we serve these students? And you guys have these limiting beliefs about your own students. It pissed me off. So as a result of my advocacy, I provided, he was connected to an internship. How that happened is in a meeting, I displayed pictures. I gave them examples of how the student can perform with visual support and natural cue support. And what I found is that a lot of them had distorted perceptions because they only read his IEP. They never observed him in a physical environment and see what he could do. So he was accepted, but because of their limiting beliefs, their distorted perception and their stigma attached to him because he didn't speak verbally and that he learned differently than others because he has autism, I started my Empowerment Profile 31 line because in the pandemic, I couldn't open an adult big program like I wanted to. So I said, I need something that I can still operate in my gifts and make my voice heard and elevate the voices of those with disabilities, especially those with autism, because of my experience. So I started the apparel line as a result of that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think another thing is that, I mean, it's great that you're doing what you're doing, but I mean, women, black people, whatever, like we all are, as far as the disabled community, it covers everyone. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, and again, everybody who's going through, that's the thing. Like, I think some people don't have much of an imagination because, like, I remember someone telling me about an album years ago, like the Notorious B.I.G.'s original album. I was like, well, it doesn't hold up as much because he's talking about beepers and tape decks and all. And it's like, yeah, but if you just like use your imagination and just, the Galaxy Pixel or whatever, iPhone 12 or whatever, like if you just use your imagination, he's just talking about the relevant things of that time. Um, and so like it's the same thing with this where it's like, you are a person who, you see someone going through something, and I'm sure you've gone through some certain discriminations yourself just based
Yeah.
on what you are. And it's like, if you just equate it to that, and just because it's different, yes, you're getting judged different in a different way. They're saying different things, blah, 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 blah. But it really is relatively the same thing. Someone putting you down and making you feel like you're beneath them, regardless if it's their color or their deformity or whatever. It's the same thing. Just use your imagination and just have an open mind and realize it's the same thing. And that's why, like, like when people are out there fighting for these causes, for like police brutality or whatever, yeah, but there's nothing wrong because you'll see people with disabilities go to those causes as well. It's like, well, then go to theirs. Like, defend each other. Just because you're not completely all about gay rights or you don't know if it's completely right, but you should fight
Mm-hmm.
for their rights because they're fighting for yours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all relative. Like, we need to stick together as people. It's not,
Right.
yeah. So, yeah, and I think it's super honorable, and I think it's one of those things that with you, like, it was kind of right in front of you, like as a child, which is, I think, even more honorable because when you're that young, especially when you said you were 12, but even 5, my phone went off. Um, you know, you're all about you don't want to get teased and you want to be, maybe not popular, but you don't want to be uh, in front of the scope of, oh my God, like, oh, you're siding with the nerd or, the disabled kid. And you actually are just like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care if it doesn't get me more friends. And
Right.
yeah, and I think that's what's really, it's one of the things that's really cool about you.
Yeah. I didn't care. And just, I think seeing her cry for me did it for me as a child. And then, I would get invited over to her mother's house. Her mother said that she was the only one that I invited over because she was scared of how the other kids would treat her daughter because she's seen the mean things they would do and say. And it was just an honor for me to know that now. My mother just told me about that. I didn't know that I was the only one that got invited over her house until a couple months ago when I did a video about Maya. So just knowing that it makes a huge difference, not only in the child with the disability or the physical deformity or impairment, but also the lives of the parents. I think for some people we just focus on the person as, that has disability as a child, but it's very hard on the parents, very, very hard. And as a transition coordinator, I help parents, I assist them in the process of setting post high school services up. And one of the challenges I found is that parents are, number one, they're scared. They don't know how the world is going to treat their son or daughter outside of school. Number two, they are nervous about how their child's going to be accepted to different programs where in school they're entitled to it. But day programs and support employment, volunteer opportunities, you have to be eligible for that. So they're trying to, understand how can we develop skill sets, life skills and job related skill sets for the students to be eligible. And then thirdly, when they get into these day programs, the parents are nervous and express to me, I don't want my child who is full of different talents and abilities to sit near a window and just be puzzled. And I tell them that too. I don't want it either. So what the direction we're going in, I like the direction that DDA is going into. DDA stands for Developmental Disabilities Administration. And that's what we have in Maryland, also in DC. I'm not sure across the country, but I know definitely in Maryland and DC. DDA has now required everyday programs to have a component where it's a person-centered plan that's developed, and the person-centered plan includes the strengths, the interest, the strengths, the interest, the abilities, the behavioral plan. It includes the supports needed to accommodate that individual when they go through a day program, and the program has to design their day according to the person-centered plan for each individual, which is awesome because now day programs are charged with having to have a component of community integration, and also they have to develop a plan of how are we going to get this adult who is well able to be connected to employment. Now, there's some that won't be able to, but for those that are, we need to have a plan to get them to employment. And DDA now also has checks and balances. They are checking in on day programs and requiring them to send in reports quarterly of what they have done to connect adults to employment and show numbers now. So I'm happy the direction we're going into, but there's still more work to be done. So I just wanted to make that point as well that, the parental perspective is also something important that really ignited me to become the advocate that I am. I'm advocating for the adult, the child, as well as the parent of these adults and children.
Right. Yeah. No, that's awesome. All the help is needed because, we've made strides when it comes to people with disabilities because we're not being hunted down and put in camps and all kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least we're just going to say in the United States. But, it's we still have a long ways to go. Again, we still have ways to go with racism and sexism and all that stuff too. But but we're a lot closer with them. It's more known that like there's places that will literally hire black people just so they don't look racist. Whereas there really isn't any of that for people with disabilities. Yes, you got the people who will hire somebody with special needs for like bagging groceries and so on. But it's rare, and that's the reason why there's over 75% of us are unemployed. And that's a number that if that was the black community or the gay community or anything, it would be staggering and people would try to change it, regardless of if the reasoning behind it was a good reason. They would definitely try to change it so that their companies didn't look a certain way. But with people with disabilities, that is not the case. And there's more that goes into it because there's a lot of just, educating and training people of how to deal with someone who's just a little different.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, the more people, that's the thing. I don't, so many people are, and I think especially with the disabled community, someone in your case, like you really kind of know where you are and who you are as a person. But a lot of people with disabilities are struggling in this world of trying to find some sort of normalcy that they'll probably never have because there's nothing normal about them. But there doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's just they're trying to find happiness. They're trying to find a way that they fit in this world. I said to someone before in another episode that it's like it's like trying to get into a house that doesn't have doors or windows. It's like we don't know how to find a way in, and we don't want much. We just want people to leave us alone and just accept us as anyone else. And every guest I've had on here with a disability will tell you, and has told me, that, we're always equated with someone with special needs. And it has nothing to do, I mean, again, there's people who have special needs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, oh, I'm blind, I'm deaf, I'm in a wheelchair, whatever. I have MS, I have all these different things. And I am, I'm considered special needs because no one is educated, no one wants to understand what we go through. And our lives are so hard, and I like that you're like trying to break down barriers because there are already barriers in our lives as it is. Like life, all of us have to come to terms with the things that we cannot do.
Right.
But life and people tend to give us more barriers, more hurdles. I think we talked about it on your show about how people will say, like I said about some of us are really afraid to like brag about the things that we have, like an apartment or a girlfriend or whatever. I graduated high school or college or whatever, because, if I told some random person who, has their life together and goes like, oh man, I got a job and I live on my own. It's like, yeah, so do I. And so do my kids. But it's like, yeah, but you didn't have all these hurdles and all these barriers put in front of you to make it much harder. So it's more of an accomplishment for me. And so that's, that's part of the problem is like, we're also afraid to be brazen about what we go through or what we have because it doesn't seem like much to the average normal person.
And you know what? That's the thing. Like normal. What is normal? But a setting on the washing machine. That's how I'm starting to view it now. Because as a person who without disability, and as you being my friend, because I know your limitations now, because we have talked, it's like any milestone that you had, I'm gonna celebrate you because I know the barriers and limitations in which you had to overcome to get there. I think it's a matter of people without disabilities talking to people with disabilities and understanding them and understand that what's a triumph for them, a triumph to them may not be to you, but you still need to celebrate them. And it is a triumph. That's the truth of it all. And I think comparing sometimes is a moral killer, because the comparison of, like you said, the victories of someone that doesn't have a disability doesn't mean we should minimize the milestones and achievements of those with disabilities because of what it took to get there. That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
yeah.
I think we need to start. I think people without disabilities and advocates like myself, we need to start there. We need to dismantle the comparison and see it and live in truth and see it for truth for how the person feels about their life and celebrate them and not define it based on how we perceive it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But like what I said on the last episode where, we were talking about homeless people and disabled people of, we are like a huge reminder of what you could be. And I think some people think there's a huge gap between us, like, oh, that couldn't happen. But it's like, people don't understand. I barely can see out of my left eye, and my right eye is okay. I'm standing in front of a microphone. If I take this microphone and bash my eye in, I'm totally blind. It doesn't take much.
Wow.
Like if I get into a car accident, I might be paralyzed for the rest of my life. It's like, it's not that far. You're right there. Like, same with the homeless thing. Like, you literally could miss 1 or 2 bills, and if you don't have a family to take care of you or help you out or no friends, you're going on the streets. Like you're not that
Yeah.
far from being homeless or disabled. And just for this topic, disabled, it's like you're very close to being that. It's just one horrible, tragic incident that can make
Right.
that happen for you. And I think
Wow.
some people either are, uh, they downplay it like, oh, that can't happen to me. And then they're the people that I think are just petrified of it.
Mm.
And it's just like, it's like it's off-putting to them. It's like, we're gonna ignore those people because I don't want to act. It's almost like we're contagious, and
Mm.
and of course there's always this stuff. Like there's people. If there's a child that's autistic or whatever, then the parents get, compared to like people who are into incest and all the things. Like there's a lot of things that are said and looked upon with us, and not just blind or every disability. But it's horrific because it's like, dude, you don't understand. You're one bad incident that we don't hope for you, but we're one bad incident away from becoming us or worse. Obviously death is there too.
Right. And that's why we've got to be careful of our judgments. And that's why I said I'm here to dismantle stigmas and it starts in deficiency in mindsets that we need to start addressing when it comes to not just only people without disabilities, but people with disabilities and how they feel about themselves in relation to the world. And how do we do that? We create safe spaces. We create opportunities of accessibility in the workplace and other social platforms. We could create, plans and actually execute them to make people with disabilities feel comfortable and sense of belonging and welcome and genuinely do it and not just to meet a quota. You know what I'm saying? And I want to speak to your point earlier when you talked about me being a Black woman, how I can also be advocating for racial disparities. And I want to address that kind of because it's not that I'm not an advocate for change and justice across the board. Those disabilities, racial disparities, I'm here for it all. But I'm putting focus and emphasis on those with disabilities because number one is dear to my heart. Number two, I have experience in the field. And three, I think this is more importantly, there's not enough people talking about it. It's not enough of us out there on the
Absolutely.
front line talking about it and advocating for it. And it's about intention and attention, intention and attention. And I just recently attended a webinar that it talks about disability inclusion, and I attend these all the time so I can become educated and know what to advocate for. And they said we need to start with revising the leadership agenda. Have you heard of Value 500?
I roughly know a little about it, not a whole lot, but yeah, please educate
So
me.
Value 500, what they do as a company, they have a goal of getting 500 companies to commit to prioritizing inclusion and diversity on their agendas for those specifically with disabilities. And I say specifically because the whole Black Lives Matter movement ignited a change in employers to start prioritizing diversity and inclusion on their agendas to address the disparities culturally and racially. However, there's not a lot talking about disability because they are also a marginalized, group of people. And Value 500 said that 90% of those who committed and stated that they were dedicated to diversity, only 4% included those with disabilities. That's a problem. That's not even near half. That's a huge problem. So when we talk about me as a woman being Black and experiencing racism myself and why I chose to advocate more for those with disabilities and those who have racial disparities, this is why. Because it's too much of a gap in us addressing these needs, actually doing something about it. So, that's where my passion comes from. And Benjamin Franklin said this, and this is the quote I is the foundation of my business and my advocacy. He said that things will never change until those who are not affected are as outraged as those who are. And this, my advocacy and my business is a display of my outrage, but in a productive and meaningful way.
Right. No, absolutely. That's the stuff that I've talked about. Like, I think when you say certain things, like people think you're just like saying the other group is better, but it's like, look, when in order to get rid of slavery, there was those white people that are outside the bus taking rocks to the head. It's not to say
Mm-hmm.
that the white people were better than the black people, because no, a lot of the white people are why the black people were in those camps and enslaved, but you needed the white people to help free you. Gay people to get married, you needed straight people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if disabled people, they need able bodies to do it. Like
And yeah, it's the
it's
point.
women to vote back in the day and to get out of the kitchens and actually work and have a life like a man could. They needed men. It wasn't going to
Wow.
happen. It's a world that's
Right.
built by men, and all the rules are made by men and for men. And it's like, in order for that to change, men had to change their mindsets. And so it's the same thing here. It applies to all of it. Like, that's why I said we're so ingrained and we're fused together. But it's like we act like we're so far from each other. Like, oh, I could never be a woman or black or what. It's like, dude, just take some of your experiences and just put it in a different body and change the experience just a little bit. But a lot of this discrimination and whatever else comes from it is relatively the same. You just
It
gotta
is.
have an open mind.
It is. It definitely is a lot. That's so many profound points that you just made, and just opened my awareness a little bit more of what it takes, and how God has really positioned me in a place where I am definitely being a trailblazer, and I'm blazing a trail to and for people with disabilities to have access to opportunities of equity, inclusion, and equality. And what I mentioned earlier is that I'm participating in the change by offering consultative services, hopefully in the fall, where I'm just not advocating for employers and teachers and different social platforms to make their platforms accessible. I'm going to participate in. So what I want to do is start going into schools and helping teachers develop a universal design in their curriculum and in their physical classroom, because everybody learns differently with or without a disability. That's another thing. I don't learn math the same way as anybody, some other people, and I don't have a disability. So what do they think about people with disabilities, need? Like, we need to be accommodating all the way around. I'm going to go into different, employer environments and help them make their environment accessible. And another thing, a point I want to make is that all disabilities don't display the same, and they don't learn the same. So it's like I want to ask employers, who are they serving? And sometimes people don't, because there are also invisible disabilities that I realize people don't have to disclose that they have one. But I want to at least help employers set up their environment where it at least touches on a little bit of everything. Have audio output, set up large print on your application, have different things in the environment that is accessible for those with wheelchairs. Like I want them to color code different things and offer braille options in their environment. So something we can do to be like a generalized accessibility. And it's also true when they hire someone with disability, they can always bring me in to make a modified person-centered plan that is accommodating to that person. So you're right. It doesn't just take those with disabilities making a way for themselves. It takes those without disabilities being able to help others, join the movement and participate in it. So that's something important to me as well.
Yeah, again, like I said, it's one of those things where you don't have to, but it's great that you do. I mean, in a way, you do have to because you're a human and you should do what's right for humans. But
Hmm.
in the time that we're living in, it's like people are just about themselves, and it's like you don't have to care. And that's why I asked in the beginning. It's like you could talk about just stuff for women and black people, and people wouldn't look bad an eye. It's like, oh, of course you would stick up for her, or what ails her. But that's the
Hmm.
thing. Like, again, like I said, you're one step away from becoming me, and then of course I never would wish that upon you or anyone. But or anything. You're close to being a lot of different things, and it's just like, and just because maybe you're a little more fortunate in your life and your life is going well, and whatever you do okay financially, and you have a family and people care about you, and obviously you have a good mom who put a good head on your shoulders. Like, that's great, that's awesome. Just don't rub it in people's faces, and don't make it like don't ignore what she taught you, which obviously you haven't, and just apply what you learned from every experience you've had, and just continue to do great things. Because, like I said, a lot of people just like, well, I don't have that problem, so why do I care? It's like, well,
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
fine, but be happy you don't have that problem. But it doesn't mean you can't fight for them or can't fight for
Right.
whatever it is. It's just be human. But it seems like being human is just being evil nowadays, and it's like, man, like we got to get away from that.
Yeah. Like, where's the compassion? And I think for me, we people without disabilities, we still have our internal battles, even though we don't have the same experiences with disabilities. We have internal battles that have relatable feelings. For example, when I was you were on my live, you discussed your experience with one of your employers and how this guy got public accolades and even I think you said a gift card, maybe correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that for helping you, and it's like they cheered him on, and I thought that was so demeaning for you and disrespectful, and it hurt me because I've been there. I've been in a place where I felt minimized and devalued and disrespected, and then and also for you, I know you felt like a charity case, and you are not. So even though we don't have a disability, we have relatable feelings, and I'm compassionate for you because that's just one reason I am, because of those experiences, and that's why that pushed me to do that shirt for you and others. I offered on my website, and it states that I may be legally blind, but I can see through BS. Meaning, I can see you disrespecting me. I can see you minimize me and devalue me. I can see how you view my disability as a limitation and not focus on what I can do and offer here, and see my talents and see my gifts and see my feelings and consider my thoughts. I can see all of that. Even though I can't maybe see some physical constructs, I can see through your BS. And I don't like it. And it's not something that I'm going to continue to accept. So that's what inspired that shirt, was your experience. Yeah. So, and that's why I love having friends like you with disabilities, because you help me to perform my best, and also to put quotes and messages on my apparel that can be relatable to other people with or without disabilities. Because I have people also that buy my shirts without disabilities, and that is the intention. My shirts are meant to be a conversation starter, get people thinking, and dismantling stigmas across the board. So, you're right. I mean, even though we don't have the same battles, we have the same internal feelings that makes me relatable to the disability community.
Yeah, and maybe we don't have all the same battles, but whatever you want to call them, the oppressor or whatever, they hold us all back in many different ways. It's just different for different individuals, but it's kind of the same people controlling the same narratives and just keeping us from, one of the big things is what I talked about in the last episode is, it's they don't want white and black people together because that's powerful. That's something that means they actually have to answer the call, and they actually have to listen to what people have to say. Even though white and black people get along every day, all the time. But if you continue to put the smoke screen in the way and continue to think that we just hate each other, other people who were kind of on the fence are going to kind of lean towards, oh yeah, I guess that's right, whitey sucks or black sucks, and this is what we go with. And it's no, it's not much of a problem. It's just you're looking at this propaganda that's telling you that we hate each other, and it's stop. They're doing this to keep us divided. They're screwing us too. It's just screwing white people doesn't sell, but they screw white people all the time. I mean, there's more impoverished white people because there's more white people in this country. But it's they screw those people too. There's a huge divide between the poor and the rich. There's a huge divide between even the middle class and the rich. And they continue to divide us, and they do that all the time. It's just, no one wants to listen. So you bring it back to people with disabilities. It's look, we're in the same boat. It's just they don't want you to help us. Because if you do, then that's more people on your side. Your army gets bigger. And we got to stick together. But one of the things when you were saying about what I said on your live, it's people. Another thing that people don't understand, like the mental health stuff that comes into it. Dude, when that happened, I just wanted to go home and blow my head off. I don't have a gun, but the suicidal and the depression and all this stuff that comes from that. There's people who have killed themselves over stuff like that, whether they have a disability or not. But in that case, that's something that I just was so depressed, and I was so angry, and I went to HR about it, and they basically told me in so many words that I can't prove, because there was also a woman there that basically was she was wondering why, she wanted to know if I worked at a special needs, there's this job that hires these special needs children here, and it's great, but it's she wanted to know why I worked there, and I told her, why are you asking me this question? You came over here to get the tape, and she said, no reason, my husband works there. And it's but that's not a valid reason. Have a reason to follow up with that. Have a follow-up question or something. Maybe you saw me one day go in that building, something. Make something up. But no, she was just saying that, she thought I was special needs because I had to look at something closer. And I go to HR about that, which I'm not that kind of person. But it was dude, this is really affecting me through the day. And it's look, man, I this is inappropriate. This is bullshit. I don't want to deal with this. And they're just well, I don't think you can prove that that's what her intentions were. It's yeah, because you don't want to hear it, but that was her intention. It's just, people can be a little more subtle about our crap. At least people with disabilities. And that's the stuff that, like I said, it kills people, literally.
Yeah.
I'm a little stronger of a person. I can get through it. But I've been on suicide watch before, years and years ago. I understand it, and when I see people kill themselves over stuff like that,
wow,
I completely understand. I would never tell them to do it, but you put a spotlight on a person, like when I was talking about you as a kid and how you kind of took the spotlight off that child, and or at least got into the spotlight with her. Whereas you didn't have to. You could have just
Right.
let her stay in the spotlight and just become just bullied and treated like crap, and everyone laughs at her. And so, but in this case, I would be her, and the spotlight's on you, and all these people are looking at you, and it's like you already feel lonely, and it's like, oh, there's pretty girls over there. Well, now they're not going to talk to you because now you're just some guy who can't even do something right, or they have some guy basically taking care of you, and you're in your 20s, and it's like all he was doing was helping me learn something, and he was being nice, but it was like, oh, okay, well, aha, look at this guy. He sucks. He can't do anything right. Of course he can't, because he has an eye problem. And here's your gift card for just being nice to him. And yeah,
That's so disrespectful.
yeah,
That's so disrespectful. And that then, I think about, okay, so you have strength. You have a level of resilience you need to overcome and live. But what about those who don't have the strength? So what if those who don't have the confidence in themselves? And I mean, it took a while for you to build it, but like you said, you were strong enough to overcome it. You went through some challenging thoughts about yourself in your life at that moment. But for those who don't, that's what worries me. For those who do take their life, for those who do isolate themselves and decide they're not going to connect to anybody, and then some people, some people quit their jobs as a result that had disabilities. Excuse me, that's my computer.
I
But
hear you.
they had disabilities, and then they become homeless because they quit because it's so uncomfortable to be in that workspace, and that's the problem for me. Like, and then it's like, why do you have to prove to HR about your experience? And that's the thing that bothers me about some HR policies. And again, we have to change. We have to revise leadership, and not leadership that's a management of, for like the CEO or COO, but I'm talking about management across the board. HR needs to start viewing people with disabilities and their experiences differently as well. Everything should not be, I'm not saying give them special treatment, but what I am saying is for you, like for in your instance, if I come and tell you that I've been discriminated against or feel as if I have, you should be able to say, I don't need proof to tell you, but have a conversation with that person at least. That's why I also want to help companies modify their their practices, and provide them training of how to do that, to cultivate a mindset where people across the board, employees and management, are cohesively knowing how to respect those with disabilities and knowing what it is to discriminate and give examples of what discrimination is. And I will offer them your examples of what you told me, because everyone needs to become more aware of how they are addressing those disabilities, how they are, coming across to those disabilities. And again, I don't speak for those disabilities. I advocate for them. And, conversations like this gives me the words to say so that I can magnify your voice and feeling to be generalized of how we should respond as a community. So that's the problem I have right there, is why do you have to prove yourself? Because guess what? As a Black woman, when someone actually, and the crazy thing is I didn't even tell them that I was being discriminated against racially until the pandemic, and then it went on 2 years prior in my workplace, and they didn't tell me to prove it. They knew from what I was saying that it was discrimination. They just refused to address it, because it was a hard conversation. We have to be vulnerable enough, and even if it's uncomfortable, we don't even have to be comfortable, but we have to be vulnerable and respectful enough to have the hard conversation. Because if we don't, it will result in people feeling the way you did about yourself and having thoughts of suicide, is what we do not want. It should not be occurring.
Yeah.
So it needs to be modifications across the board.
Yeah, we have to have real conversation. That's the thing, and I think because people are so afraid of it, and people are afraid of like
Yeah.
how people are going to perceive them afterward. Because I know a lot of white people are afraid to have racial discussions because the R word comes out, and it's like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like we have to have real conversation here. Like if we're gonna save these neighborhoods and we're gonna save these children from going into gangs and all that, like we have to have real conversation. You can't hold back. Like
Right.
your intentions and your feelings towards it, as long as you're not coming off in a malicious way and you're just saying, oh, here comes the blacks and they're doing, no, as long as you come in with a real reason, you're just like, look, because there's plenty of Black people that are fighting against it, a lot of this stuff, and they get called Uncle Toms and all kind of things because because it's going against the grain. It's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just be blind, metaphorically, but you're supposed to be blind and just go, who cares? Like, yeah, it happens, but the police, or yeah, this and this. It's like, no, like you don't get it. Like, we're never going to make any progress if you continue to have people like LeBron James and people like that, talk for you, because all they're doing is making it way worse. They're just saying whatever they're paid to say, or whatever makes their campaign, or whatever makes them sound good, because it only seems to happen right around, when a new president is being voted on. And, and same thing with the disabled stuff. It's like, people don't want to fight for it, because they don't want to have those conversations. And it's, whether it's with women or with anything, any of these really deep conversations, people don't want to have an objective, just open conversation about what we really need to do. And I think sometimes it's used as an excuse, especially like in the workplace. It's like, well, how much money do we got to put in to get, the assistive technology for him or her? It's like, no, a lot of it has nothing to do with money. Maybe a little, but in general, it's mainly just educate these people and just, just listen to the person and tell you what I need. Yes, I can't climb a ladder, or I can't do this, but I can do this and I can do that. And you're more likely going to get a really dedicated worker because they're appreciative of what you gave them an opportunity. So, yeah, like, back to your point, like I said, we just need to have real dialogue and real conversations with the opposite of whatever it is.
Right.
White and black people have to have real conversations without being, we got to get rid of the biases. We got to stop being married to what we are.
That's right.
Because you're a woman and I'm a guy, but we're still both human. You're black and I'm white. We're still human. I'm disabled and you're not, but we're still both human, and we still both have been through similar things. We both breathe. We both, take showers, and, we both do everything that we do. We both eat. And it's just we're supposed to be perceived as different. And we are in our own ways, but at the end of the day, we still do a lot of the same things. And it's like, why can't we fight for each other? Why can't we have real conversation? Because I've said before many times, like, the people that are most likely to screw you in your life, at least when it comes to race and gender and all that, the people that are most likely to screw you in your life are people who look like you.
Right.
Regardless of all the hatred and all the shit that's out there that people are dealing with, the people that are most likely, because most of the people in my life that have screwed me over, most of them are white. It's just a fact. That doesn't mean that all white people are bad. It's just, I have had people that are black or Hispanic screw me over, but it's less likely in my life because I'm a white person and I was born into a white family. And it's just like, so we have to stop being married to our, because I get mad when people go, you got an Apple phone, really? It's like, what? You're married to Android? Because they don't care about you, just like Apple doesn't care about me. So stop being blinded by all the nonsense. Like, just
we have to get out our own way.
Yeah.
And I want to, speaking of conversation and having hard conversations, I want to get your perspective on the conversation construct and context itself. So again, like I mentioned earlier, I attended a diversity webinar, and I like to read the comments. I just listened to the panel, and I was looking in the chat box, and a lot of people from the deaf community was speaking of and advocating for themselves. And someone said this. She said, so many people have been deciding what the deaf community needs, rather than including deaf leaders as part of the process of changes. And then she put this quote, "Nothing about us without us." And I thought that was so compelling for me, because it's just like, you're right. Not that I thought she was wrong before, but it's just like, this is further confirming that we need to have a diverse group of people making decisions and talking about changes with those without disabilities together. And because, again, I can't speak for you, and I can't tell people how to implement change that you need to see to accommodate you and others like you, without having a conversation with you. So what do you think about the quote, "Nothing about us without us"?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've been fighting for years. You absolutely, the problem is, and another reason where these hurdles that come into play is that it's people who aren't like us and they're making the rules for us. So they're not taking our input. One of the things I don't remember if I said it on your show or someone else's podcast, I said that, there's a, I try to be careful because I don't get in trouble at work, but screw it. There's a job at work, and they said, well, blind people can't do this because they went and did it blindfolded, two-sighted people. And they did it blindfolded and they couldn't do it. So they said, well, blind people, a blind, not visually impaired, but they said a total blind person could not do it because they couldn't do it blindfolded. But yet
Wow.
it's like, you don't get it. Like the realization of
No.
you can take that mask or that blindfold off, and you know the light's gonna come in where the person that you're talking about cannot. He will never be able to see.
Wow.
So he always is finding an alternate way. As again, the house with no doors and no windows. He's always trying
Mm.
to find an alternate way into that house. So you don't have that because you're privileged or fortunate enough to have sight.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like you need, so that's like I said, there's people that are constantly creating these things for us, and they're not us. They don't have a visually impaired or blind person. They don't have a deaf person. They don't have, a person in a wheelchair. They don't know what it's like. I mean, we're starting to get a little better with some of these, with technology, and because there's some people making some really amazing equipment out there.
Hmm.
But again, a lot of these job sites, I'm on some council now in this small town where we're trying to make everything accessible on all our, like, it's like 9 different parks, for people
Hmm.
in wheelchairs, like ramps, and just people who are visually impaired or blind, and just we're working on stuff like that. But when I look at the council, I'm the only one with a disability, and if I didn't
Mm.
join it, there probably wouldn't have been one.
Right.
And it's like, that's the thing, and that also goes to us as people with disabilities. Like, why are we not speaking up more? Because this shouldn't be tolerable. It sucks that
Right.
even though it seems like it always is, it's too late when people speak up. I mean, like the stuff with the abusing of Asians, that's been happening forever. It's
Yeah.
just now a video or two surface, and now we want to care about it. That's been
Mm.
happening for a long time.
Yeah.
I've talked about it many times. Like I grew, for 10 years, I was, or maybe a little more, I grew up around my Spanish cousins. And a lot of those bad neighborhoods down there, the Asians, they have their restaurants, and they put them in the black and Hispanic neighborhoods, and they always have to have double bulletproof glass because they're constantly getting shot up and robbed, and they're constantly
Mm.
being abused. And it's like, I knew that was happening forever. It's just no one, because it didn't sell then. It's not cute.
Hmm.
And same with this disabled stuff. It's not cute. People said it's not sexy. Why are you talking about it? It's like, because I don't care if it's sexy. I don't care if it's something that can sell a magazine or whatever, an article or something. Like, I give a shit about it because not enough people do. Or a lot of people
Right.
that do, they just are afraid to speak up because they get criticized. Because
Right.
there's people in our community that are afraid to speak up, or they get some sort of notoriety, and then again they close the portal behind them because they want to be known as that person. They don't want to be known as that person with a disability. They want to be the one anomaly that made it through, and they don't want to be known for what they are, or what got them there, and that's their disability. And it's like, for me, a reason why I interview all these people, because I want to bring them all with me. Like, if I ever
Yeah.
get something, ever make something of myself with this, and like, because I care so much about it. And it's like, I know so many people are afraid to speak up because that they're not, looked at in the way they need to be. And I know I'm not
Hmm.
safe because I curse and I say things that need to be said, and it's not just a, towing on a line of, oh, well, we're cool, but we're good now. No, we need to get a lot further in this world. We need to make more of this. And it's ridiculous to where we are. So yeah, back to your question, just, yeah, like, you need to invite everyone to the table, and
Hmm.
everybody needs to have their input. It's, I've said it many times, like, when people, you want to break racism, have a white friend, have a black friend, like, get to know them, and figure out how similar you are. I had an argument with a bunch of white people about how similar country music and rap music is. I was like, you understand,
Hmm.
this is very similar, right? You both like,
Yeah, very much so. Tell
yeah,
stories. Yes.
like okay, they like F-150s, you like Escalades or whatever. Like,
Ah.
you both like women, you both like weed, you both like guns. It's just a little different. The sound is a little different, but in general, it's pretty much the same subject matter. It's just
Yeah.
you just don't want, both of you just don't want to, you want to refuse that you're not alike, but you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's, again, just, we need more unity. We need more people that want to come together and have real conversations.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as you were talking, I thought about the scenario, and it's actually a real life scenario. I remember, I don't know when it was, but some time ago there was an influx of those who were Hispanic coming to the country, and the country just like we need to start making sure that at jobs we have somebody on the staff that's Spanish speaking. So, then I went to a couple months ago when I was in Walgreens picking up a prescription for myself. There was a guy there who had a translator on his phone because he couldn't speak English. And then on staff, they were asking someone to speak Spanish because now there's the expectation to have someone who's either bilingual or can completely speak Spanish on staff, right? So,
right.
So we're putting these emphasis on accommodating, immigrants, and not saying it shouldn't be because this is an open country, free country, and people should be really able to live all over the world wherever they choose to, right? There's not just one area for these type of people. But what I'm saying is if we're putting emphasis on diversifying staff with Black people and diversifying staff with Spanish-speaking people, whether they be American or Hispanic descent, why is there not emphasis and an invitation on LinkedIn or Indeed to hire people with disabilities? And TJ, answer me this because I don't want to be offensive. I never want to be offensive. And you told me before, I have a habit of overthinking, which I do.
You do.
But what if employers put on their website something like they are not targeting, but they are inviting people with disabilities of any disability of any kind, whether it be cognitive, intellectually, physical, whatever it may be, to be on their team so that they can not make any decisions about them without them. Is that offensive to have as an invitation?
No, I mean, look, I've even said, and this is a much sadder, darker take, but I've even said, look, what you guys don't realize, if you have, like, it's the same thing with people saying they're going to hire Hispanics or Blacks to show that they're not racist. You can do the same thing with people with disabilities. You can hire a deaf girl or a blind person or whatever and go, look, see, we care about them, even though they don't. They don't do that, but there's nothing wrong. Yeah, I mean, because again, they you can't discriminate against anybody for a job, but that's why they do it subliminally, and it's not outward. They're not going to just say, well, sorry, we can't hire you because you're deaf. No, they're going to say, wow, you're great. I think you bring a lot to the table, and I think it's amazing what you overcome, and we'll call you back. And they never do.
Don't call back.
Right. And we know
that's
why.
the problem I have.
Yeah.
No. And what I'm asking is, for genuine employers who really want people to be a part of the team, like me, when I had my adult program, I want somebody on my board with disabilities, because I'm not going to make decisions for people without having the people that I'm advocating for on the team with me. So I think there needs to be a clause when it comes to attracting those disabilities to apply to certain jobs on Indeed, LinkedIn, or wherever the platform may be, that says we welcome everyone, not just just saying, hey, this is a job that welcomes those disabilities and we're looking for someone specifically with disability. Like you said, we can't discriminate against anybody, but having this clause that says we're open to those who have racial and cultural differences. We're open to those who have disability differences. Like just saying you're open and that you welcome all people from all walks of life, I think would make it more attractive on the application itself and the job description. Because, I get it. We can't just target one type of group and, leave out others. But I'm just so focused on putting emphasis on making sure those disabilities who are able and have the talent and the gifts to qualify for certain positions are counted in more than they're counted out. And I just like the conversations that we have to help me know what to say. So I'm not offensive to anybody, but it's an invitation and it shows that the company is open,
right. But again, you're also walking along landmines because you're gonna offend somebody. Everyone's sensitive now, so somebody's gonna get hurt. But
yeah.
But I know I know your intentions are good, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, look, the reality of it is, like, let's be real. Like, not every person with a disability is gonna be fit for that job either. But if you know that they have a track record of hiring people with disabilities, and they have someone there on staff that's like, hey, all right, cool. Like, let's see what you can do. And then they say no. It's not no because you're disabled. It's no because you're just not a good fit. Like, when you get to a place where we're just not a good fit, this has nothing to do with our disability. Or our disability may, because not every, it's the same thing like we talked about on the last episode where it's like, look, not everything a white person does to a black person, it has to do with being racist.
Exactly.
They may just they have a different reason why they don't like you or whatever. They're crazy or whatever. And it's the same thing with this. Like, there's not every disabled person is going to be, fired or, just completely pushed away from the job because it's their disability is the problem. No, it might just be they're not a good fit. Like
Right.
if it's a heavy lifting job and you're scrawny and you can't lift much, you're not fit for the job. Maybe
Right.
do some squats and come back in a year, but you're not fit for the job. It has nothing to do with your impairment.
Yeah.
So
But I
that,
also
yeah.
think I'm sorry. I was also
No,
going to
you're
add
good.
that I think it also requires some creativity on the employer's part, because if we're talking about a whole agenda of diversity and inclusion and um, adopting a mindset that we need to involve and consider all the disparities, racial, culturally, and with disabilities, I think on my side, because also I'm a certified employment specialist, and when I went to my course, they were talking about creating customized employment positions for those disabilities. So if you have someone who may and have a certain interest. Say they have an interest in cars, but they have a like race cars, but they have a physical impairment that would not allow them to drive the race car. But what if you give them a job at the racetrack to be on a team with the racetrack to do something that they can do? You know what I'm saying? We got to start thinking out the box. We don't want to disqualify them from their interest, but have something in relation to what they want to do that they can do. So I'm thinking about, even if they don't have an open position that's already created, think about something that your employees would make work overtime for. Think about something that your employees may not be able to get a chance to do, or thinking about a need that you have in your business that you're like, if I had someone to do this, this will make my business more efficient, and
Right.
qualify them based on what they can add, and don't just disqualify them because of their disability, or like you said, separate disability from their qualifications. You see that they don't qualify, but create something they would qualify for that is beneficial to your business to, excel and is accommodating to your budget.
Right. It's
So
kind
I think we
of
need to be more creative as employers.
right. No, absolutely. It's kind of like with like the NFL. Like, okay, we know a woman is never going to be in the NFL, but there's now a woman referee. There's
Right,
there's coaches in the NBA as far as like certain not head coaches yet, but there's coaches in the NBA that are women. Like we're getting
right,
there because I think the only time you want to see that is when you see cheerleaders, and all that does is sell sexuality. So, but we're getting now where it's like, okay, now we can have a woman referee. There's nothing wrong with that.
right,
And so it's like, yeah, like there's nothing wrong. It doesn't. Everyone's dream gets altered. Some people's dream gets fulfilled, and some gets changed into something that they maybe it was in front of them the whole time, and that's not where they were leading. They were going somewhere else, and then something else showed them like, no, like this is not. This clearly this isn't a good fit for you. Go here.
right,
And yeah, like I said, you can include people even if it's not something that they intended to be included in. Like it's
right.
or get like you said, like you can be included in something. Like you could work on the race car track, and you don't have to be a NASCAR or whatever driver. You're still a
Right.
part of it,
Yeah.
and it's more safe. You don't get into car
Mhm.
accidents, and like there's so many ways around it. Like that's the thing. Like we also have to come to the reality and be realistic on what we can do. And
Mhm.
me and my friend Paul were talking about just, our slogan was like, fuck limitations, because we get tired of people telling us what we can and cannot do. We know that there's limitations. We know we cannot drive. That's one of our things. But that doesn't mean we
Mhm.
can't do anything else.
That's right.
That doesn't mean we can't hope for, you look at Tesla, what they're doing. It doesn't mean we can't hope for maybe someday down the road, maybe we can have a car. And maybe we can,
Right.
there's possibilities.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, you just gotta have, like I said, people just have to have an open mind, and they have to do things for people that are not like them. You don't have to just constantly fit a group of people that are just like you. Just do think of every outcome and try. And again, I know there's always going to be someone left out, but you just have to care.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the time, especially with people with disabilities, the only times people care is if they have a disability or someone in their family does, or they have a
Yeah.
child or a loved one or whatever, and
Mhm.
that's where we have to get away from, because we shouldn't need tragedy to educate us.
That's right.
So yeah. So yeah, tell us a little more about what you're doing these days, as far as with your businesses. What or like what goals do you have, and what you're trying to achieve.
Sure. So, as I said before, my Power and Pearl 531, I'm going to diversify that business by not just offering apparel that's online at www empowermentapparel531.com. I'm not going to just um offer that, but I'm also going to start participating in consultative services where I'm assisting employers and teachers and principals with making their environments inclusive and accessible. Also, I have plans to offer accessible housing. I think that's also important. Um, that would like to have a rental property or be able to sell houses. I'm not sure the route I'm going to go yet, but I love the idea of having wide doorways, walk-in bathtubs, level flooring, natural hue supports like color coding, different things for people who have intellectual disabilities that they cannot remember what button to push on the microwave, or someone with autism that needs help identify certain things like settings on the washing machine or dryer, just color coding what buttons to push so that they can be more independent, have a sense of autonomy. Putting braille on the walls so those who may be visually impaired can know what room they're in. Just different things, and railings, of course, and things of that nature, and have adjustable lighting for those who have sensitivity to light. Just being very mindful of the needs of those with disabilities, and just various disabilities, not just one. Also, I have a plan to, well, to be honest, I was not, the Pearl line was not in the plan at all. Before the pandemic, I was working on and got approved for adult day program, to open up a adult day program. I was in the process of looking for a building. The pandemic happened and shut everything down. So I started the apparel line so I can still operate in my gifts and advocacy. So that's still in the plan. So that's like a 3 to 5 year plan that I'm hoping for. I have upcoming releases. I have more releases and collections for my apparel line. So I'm going to be adding different graphics and messages throughout the year. So again, if people want to definitely learn more about the business and follow my advocacy, I do the advocacy videos right now twice a month on Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram is at empowermentpearl531, and the same thing for Facebook. So I got some things in the works so I can be a part of the change.
Yeah, no, we need you. It's, like I said, there's so much change to be done on all fronts and with all conditions and all ethnicities and so on and so on. It's just, like I said, every voice helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of love for you, and I'm very happy that we're friends. And anything you need, just please say so. I know you're a busy girl, or I should say woman. But yeah, like I said, we can have many conversations off or on there. It doesn't matter. But thank you again for doing this.
I do appreciate you reaching out to me, and us having this connection is very valuable to me. I appreciate what you're doing. What you're doing is very powerful and moving, and keep doing. Don't stop. I love what you're doing, and I can see you going far and reaching greater levels and heights. So I appreciate this time. I do not take it for granted. And I think you are a dynamic human being. And I look forward to the evolution of our friendship. Even though I'm busy, yes, I still have 2 jobs in the business. And hopefully my business will replace my 2 jobs soon. But at the times I can talk and hook up with you, I definitely will, because there's more for us to talk about, like you said, on and off air. So it has been a pleasure, TJ, today.
Of course. Yeah. Like I said, these are the things that need to be talked about. And, it's, to me, I think you're the only person I ever had on here that doesn't have a disability. Doesn't have a disability, but talks about people with disabilities. And I have another person coming up as well, a former teacher of mine. But that'll be out a little earlier. But still, it's it's just one of those things. It's just great to have these conversations, and like I said, it's great to see how many people are really coming out for stuff like this and fighting. And like I said, we can make real change before we check out of this world. It's just, we got to put the effort in. We got to do the things we don't want to do. The stuff that takes time and effort and have patience. And so, but yeah, like I said, please keep in, I don't have to tell you to keep in touch because we talk, but I try to watch every one of your videos and pictures on Instagram, and I know we both are busy, but like I said, anything you need, just message me anytime, call me. I'm around.
All right, sir. I appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's been a pleasure to share with all your listeners.
Yeah. Thank you again.
All right. Have a great day, TJ.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, what an awesome person. Yeah, guys. So that's different in a way. That's the thing. I I get in my own head, but there's times where I'm just like, I know I'm just doing the same thing, interview, but it's like they are all different, and we are talking about different stuff and different conditions. But these last two back to back here, um, in some ways they're different. Obviously, the last one was very different, but this one, because of having a person with no disability, um, but she shares her stories and just her empathy, it's really humbling and really sweet. So I'm very grateful for her friendship. Yeah, guys, again, comment and subscribe and share. Very well needed. I appreciate all that support. We're going to try our best to take this where we need to take it. And yeah, like I said, I love everyone who cares and supports this. And I hope everyone is well and battling their inner demons, because I know I am. So hang in there, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.